When I thought about doing this reflection, I couldn't help but think of water. You know, we have a bit of a disadvantage here in North America, Eastern North America for sure, understanding some of the language. It kind of flies by us and we're not noticing. Words like wilderness and water, they're so commonplace to us that we really don't have the opportunity necessarily. We don't even stop to think about how significant that is for people who lived in a very, very different environment, people who lived in practically desert, people for whom the wilderness was not trees like we take it, but as a scary place where who knows what animals or bandits or whatever could live in. The scripture we have today in Matthew is really, really short. It's basically a benediction in many ways. And it's talking about welcoming. There's two things I want to highlight. First is the second part of it, actually. Well, I guess three things if you include little ones. Often when we talk in English, we talk about little ones as children. That's not what was meaning in the scripture. The modern concept of children, someone we have to protect, someone we have to take care of, that give this kind of mystical, safe existence, that was not a concept shared by the ancient times. So that wasn't even part of what was factoring in. So in this passage, little one is not children. Little one is people who are vulnerable in society. The poor, the sick, the widows, those who did not have strong economic backgrounds. And that's the kind of people that the gospel of Jesus appealed to the most. Because if you're a person on the outside of society and suddenly you're treated like an equal, that's very attractive. And you like a philosophy, you like a theology that tells you that you are just as valuable as the very rich in a society where the very rich got special treatment and you did not. So that's one. Number two is when it talks about a glass of cold water. I mean, I can get a glass of cold water anytime I want. I go to the tap. You know, if I want it colder, I put ice into it or go in the refrigerator. If I'm out, I can have a cooler, like the cooler full of ice that is going to make my water cold. We have that as options now, but that's not the case. When we see scripture talk about a glass of cold water, think about this. This was a glass of water that had to be drawn from the deepest well. These folks did not have refrigeration. They did not have a way to make any of that easy for them. So for them to bring a glass of cold water, that was hugely, hugely significant. The last thing I want to talk about is the fact that it's a passage about welcoming. Quite frankly, Jesus and welcoming, Jesus and hospitality is something we're quite used to. And you know, the majority of us, we're quite good with offering hospitality. Receiving hospitality is something different. And that's kind of what Jesus was talking about in this one, what Matthew was talking about. Jesus was very good at receiving hospitality. And it always used to weird me out when I was younger about why Jesus would just sit there, why he wouldn't do anything, why he was waiting to be served, and the implied arrogance of that. Now, as an adult, I've learned a few things differently about receiving generosity. First, when you are incapacitated, when you are struggling, when you need the help, there's a graciousness of receiving help, just receiving in general, receiving food, receiving assistance. When you can't provide back, there's something very, very powerful about being on the receiving end. Our society, our capitalist society, does not respect that kind of experience, but Jesus did. And there is something also about allowing a host to serve you. There's a woman I know who is quite elderly, and her greatest joy when I go to visit is to be able to serve me tea. And she just lights up. And on the days when she can't do that, it shows. She wants to be able to host. I've had to learn to be gracious in my receiving of that, even though it goes counter to a lot of the programming I've grown up with. See, the thing is that when we talk about Jesus being countercultural in his messaging, It's a lot more than just social justice. It's also social acceptance. It's a flattening of the curve. And in a society that Matthew was writing to in Syria around 8 or 90 CE, that was a world where receiving and giving were a hierarchy. Those who were wealthy were received specially. They had special treatment. Those who could give were also socially expected to give a little bit. But these were all about accepting and securing your levels in society. One of the things Jesus and his followers did is they made that a horizontal relationship. Well, the wealthy received just because, where those who were little ones, the poor, the ones that didn't have much option, they could also be the givers. It was a very, very different world. We have to see the graciousness of accepting as much as giving, because the relationship of both is what was really significant.